In this video, I'm going to solve this question. Consider the following regression model: y equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 log of x1 plus beta 2 log of x2 plus beta 3 log of x3 plus beta 4 log of x4 plus u, and this is how the variables are defined. Y is the per capita consumption of potatoes in kg, x1 is the per capita income in 1000 rupees, x2 is the price of potatoes, x3 is the price of cauliflower, and x4 is the price of cabbage. In the first part, we have to test the joint hypothesis that the potato consumption is not affected by the prices of cabbage and cauliflower. First of all, note that the potato consumption is variable y and the price of cabbage is variable x4. So this is x4 and the price of cauliflower is the variable x3. So basically in the first part, we have to test the joint hypothesis that the variable y is not affected by the variables x3 and x4. And in this part, we don't have to do any calculation over here because it's written over here that we have to explain the steps involved in the test. So we just have to write all the steps that are there if you want to conduct this test. There is no calculation required in this particular case. Okay. So the test that we have to do is that we have to check the joint significance of the variables x3 and x4. As you can see over here that log of x3 is over here and log of x4 is over here. So basically we have to check for the significance of beta 3 and beta 4 simultaneously. So in any form of hypothesis testing, the first step is to write the null and the alternative hypothesis. In this case, the null hypothesis is that beta 3 and beta 4 are equal to 0. Note that you can also write this null hypothesis as beta 3 equal to 0, comma beta 4 equal to 0. Any of this would work. Now let's write the alternative hypothesis. In this case, the alternative hypothesis can include many possibilities. So in the null hypothesis, we are saying that beta 3 and beta 4, both of them are equal to 0. So alternative hypothesis can have three possibilities in this case. The first possibility is beta 3 is equal to 0 but beta 4 is not equal to 0. The second possibility is beta 3 is not equal to 0 but beta 4 is equal to 0. And the last possibility is beta 3 is not equal to 0 and beta 4 is not equal to 0. Because as per the null hypothesis, we have both of them equal to 0. So the alternative hypothesis include three possibilities over here. Instead of writing these three possibilities, you can also write a statement, and that statement is at least one of beta 3 and beta 4 is not equal to 0. And if you write this statement, then it will cover all these three possibilities. Okay, so you can write the alternative hypothesis in either manner. That's your step number 1. Let's move to step number 2 now. First of all, note that this is a question of joint hypothesis testing. So we are going to work with f-test over here. And to work with f-test, we want to figure out the unrestricted model and the restricted model. So our step number 2 is going to write the unrestricted and the restricted model. So unrestricted, I'm going to use the abbreviation UR instead of unrestricted, and restricted, I'm going to use the abbreviation R instead of restricted. Okay, so the step number 2 is that we have to write the unrestricted and restricted model. Let's write the unrestricted model first. So UR model. Well, the unrestricted model is the model that's originally given to you in the equation. So basically this is your unrestricted model. So you can write that same model over here. So y is equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 log of x1 plus beta 2 log of x2 plus beta 3 log of x3 plus beta 4 log of x4 plus u. Okay, so this is your unrestricted model. Now how do we go from the unrestricted model to the restricted model? Well, to go from unrestricted to restricted, we have to put these restrictions that are there under the null hypothesis in the unrestricted model. So when we put the restrictions that are there under the null hypothesis in the unrestricted model, the model that we get in return is what we call the restricted model. So the R model, that is the restricted model, is y is equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 log of x1 plus beta 2 log of x2 plus, instead of beta 3 and beta 4 we have to put 0, and if we do that then these two terms will vanish. That means I will just have plus u over here. Okay, so this is your unrestricted model and this is your restricted model. This is your step number 2. Now the step number 3 is to find the value of the test statistic, and the test statistic that we have over here is f. So in step number 3 we have to find the value of the test statistic. And when I say that we have to find the value of the test statistic, I mean that we have to find f calculated. So we have to find f calculated, because to do the hypothesis testing you need to find one calculated value and you need to find one critical value. In the third step we are finding the calculated value, which I'm calling f calculated. Well, there are multiple formulas to find the calculated value of f. So one of the formulas is RSS of the restricted model. This R over here means restricted model, minus RSS of the unrestricted model, so UR, divided by the number of restrictions. Well, in this case we are dealing with two restrictions. Okay, and how do we know that we have two restrictions in this case? Because in the null hypothesis we have beta 3 equal to 0 comma beta 4 equal to 0. So this is the null hypothesis that we have. To count the number of restrictions you need to count the number of equal to signs that are there in the null hypothesis. So there is 1 and 2. So there are two equal to signs in the null hypothesis. That means the number of restrictions that we have is 2. So I'm going to write 2 over here, divided by RSS of the unrestricted model divided by degrees of freedom of the unrestricted model. Okay, this is one of the formulas to find the value of f. Well, in this question we do not know the exact sample size, so I cannot write an exact number over here, but I do know that the degrees of freedom of the unrestricted model is sample size, which is n, and we do not know any value of n over here, so I'm just going to write n, minus the total number of parameters that are there in the unrestricted model. So how many parameters do we have in the unrestricted model? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So the degrees of freedom that the unrestricted model has is actually n minus 5. Once again, I cannot write a particular number over here because we are not given the sample size in the question. Well, this is not the only formula to find the value of f calculated. You can also write the formula in the form of r square. So the other formula that we have is f equal to r square ur means unrestricted model, minus r square r means restricted model, once again divided by the number of restrictions, which are 2 in this case, divided by 1 minus r square ur, and this is divided by degrees of freedom of the unrestricted model, which are n minus 5 in this case. So this is one of the formulas. Okay, and this is one more formula. So we can use any of these two formulas to find the value of the test statistic, that is f calculated. So this is your step number 3. Now let's move to step number 4. The step number 4 is to find the critical value. So the step number 4 is to find the critical value from the f table. So find critical value from the f table, and I'm going to call this value as f critical. Now, if you want to find the critical value from the f table, there are three things that you need to know. You need to know the numerator degrees of freedom, which I'm calling NDF. You need to know the denominator degrees of freedom, which I'm calling DDF. And you need to know the level of significance, which I'm calling alpha. So in this particular question, do we have any idea about the numerator degrees of freedom? Well, yes. The numerator degrees of freedom is actually this. So the numerator is divided by 2. So the numerator degrees of freedom is 2. Similarly, this denominator is divided by n minus 5. So the denominator degrees of freedom is n minus 5. We are not given any value of alpha in the question, so we cannot put any value over here. Either way, even if you assume a value over here, let's say even if you assume alpha equal to 5%, still you will not be able to take a look at the f table to find the exact value over here because you do not know this. Okay, all we know is that the numerator degrees of freedom is 2, the denominator degrees of freedom is n minus 5. We do not have an exact number over here, and we don't even have any value of alpha. But the procedure is that once you have these three things, you can very well figure out the f critical from the f table. And once you have the f critical from the f table, the final step, that is the step number 5, is that you have to compare f calculated that you have figured out in step number 3 and f critical that you have figured out in step number 4. So you have to compare these two, and the rule is that if f calculated comes out to be greater than f critical, then you reject the null hypothesis. Okay, and if f calculated is less than f critical, then you do not reject the null hypothesis. So do not reject the null hypothesis. So these are the steps involved in testing the joint hypothesis that the variables x3 and x4 have no impact on y. Let's move to the second part of this question. If the estimated value of B1, that is the estimator of beta 1, is 200, it means a 1% increase in income is associated with a 200% increase in per capita consumption of potatoes. Everything else kept constant. Is the above interpretation correct? Explain. Well, this is an interpretation question and I'm not going to go into the details of how do we work with the interpretations, but the answer to this question is that this interpretation is not correct. This interpretation would have been correct if I add a log over here. So if the dependent variable is log of y, then this interpretation will be correct. Okay, but right now this interpretation is not correct. So let me just summarize what I'm trying to say over here, and then I will also show you the correct interpretation. Note that this is an interpretation question and we have discussed interpretations in detail a lot many times. So I'm not going to show you the derivations or the thought process behind the interpretations. I'm just going to write the final answer over here. So the right answer over here is that if the original model had been this, so if I have a log over here, then if I estimate this model, I will get log of y hat equal to something plus 200 log of x1 plus something log of x2 plus something log of x3 plus something log of x4. Right? I do not know the values of the coefficients of these variables. I only know the value of the coefficient of log of x1, which is 200. Now, if you have this kind of model, then the interpretation of 200 is the interpretation that is written over here. In this particular case, a 1% increase in income, ideally speaking, this should have been per capita income. Okay, because x1 is showing per capita income. So in this kind of model, this interpretation would have made sense. A 1% increase in per capita income is associated with a 200% increase in per capita consumption of potatoes, that is your y variable. Everything else kept constant, and by everything else kept constant we mean the variables x2, x3 and x4. But now in this question we do not have log on the dependent variable. So the equation that we have now is y hat equal to something plus 200 log of x1 plus something log of x2 plus something log of x3 plus something log of x4. Okay, in this particular case where you have a log over here and you do not have a log on the dependent variable, the interpretation is a 1% increase in per capita income. So a 1% increase in per capita income is associated with a 200 divided by 100 units increase in per capita consumption of potatoes, which I'm just going to write as y. Everything else kept constant. So everything else kept constant. Now there are a couple of things that you need to note over here. The first thing is that I have written 200 divided by 100 because in this type of functional forms, if you want to work with 1% increase, then you need to divide the 200 by 100 in the interpretation. Okay, once again I'm not getting into the detail that why do we do it. There is a complete derivation behind this, that why do we get this type of interpretations for these kind of models. I'm not getting into those derivations now because we have discussed them in some other video. I'm assuming that you know the general structure of the interpretation and I'm just highlighting some important elements over here. So if you want to write 1% increase, then you need to divide 200 by 100 over here. The other thing that you need to note over here is that there is log on x1. So the original units of x1 are not going to play any role over here. As you can see over here, the original units of x1 is 1000 rupees, this. Okay, but they have no role to play over here. But because there is no log on y, then the original units of y are going to play a role, and the original units of y are kg. So over here we will have 200 divided by 100 units, and instead of units I have to write kgs, that is kilograms. So a 1% increase in per capita income, which is your x1, is associated with a 2 kilograms increase in y, everything else kept constant. Okay, so this is the right interpretation for the case that's given to us in the question. And this is all for this video.